Save the Semantics, episode 357. It is December 17th, 2025. My name is Myro. This is the podcast where I ramble on for a bit about some shit. Recording this on a Wednesday evening. I am currently giving myself a little bit of a break. Went to the gym yesterday. Today, I was thinking I might still go, but honestly, it's probably better to give a little bit of a gap to let, to rest and stuff like that. So a bit of a rest day today, which is good. A lot going on. I mentioned last time that I recorded that I have some life updates, so I'll get into that in a little bit. I didn't have time when I recorded on Monday, I believe, to get into that. So I'll talk about that some more now, but let's talk about the NBA Cup a little bit. So the Spurs and the Knicks played last night. Ended up being a pretty fun game. I didn't watch all of it, mostly caught kind of the back end of it. Knicks sort of came back down from double digits when the Spurs were, kind of firing on all cylinders. And some pretty impressive play from players like Tyler Kolek and Jordan Clarkson. Like, there was I think it was kind of the bench plus obviously Brunson and Anunoby that kind of led the way for them. But fun game, really fun game. I think overall with the Cup, I think it has resulted in some more fervor, some more excitement. This is the third year since its inception. I think you're going to get certain, because it is a single elimination game, you're going to get certain moments. Like last year's championship game was a bit of a dud because Milwaukee just kind of was, playing very well. Like Giannis, the Thunder didn't have an answer for Giannis right at that time. So it wasn't, it didn't end up being the most exciting thing. But you're going to get instances where you get this like comeback victory from a team, maybe a bit more of a closer game. I just think it varies because there's so much more variability because it's single elimination. There's so much more pressure, which does add to the excitement of the tournament, I think. But yeah, I think you could definitely see this format continue to evolve as it sort of ages and matures. I think the one thing I would say that will be an improvement next year is having the semifinals at the home arenas of the teams that qualify, as opposed to in Vegas. I did think the energy was good based on what I saw. I mean, it's a little hard to gauge, but it seems that the crowd was into it. But it also does help that the teams that were a part of it were the Knicks, big city, biggest, one of the bigger markets. And then with the Spurs, you have Wembanyama, so you have the Wemby hype. So I feel that matchup kind of favored a little bit more in terms of getting more people, more casual fans, maybe potentially excited with it. So I don't know. I think there are still things that can be improved. I think the fact, and I think this is probably where it's a little difficult to be able to distinguish these sort of cup games. I know that when this started a few years ago, the idea kind of came about from the concept that was used for the MLS and some other, football leagues where they sprinkle in a tournament. Because I remember, I think I went to one of those games where it was an MLS team playing against a Mexican team. And, those types of tournaments, I think, I mean, it's still fun, right? Like, it's still competitive. I just think the difference between that versus the NBA is just the fact that there is just so little rest time for basketball. That's the main issue. I think this has been talked about. The issue is the amount of games in the season. It is unsustainable with how injuries are, with travel, with the lack of necessary rest. I mean, I know that the physicality is at a completely different level, but with football, at least it's a week off. And then when you have teams that play maybe Sunday and then they play on Thursday, people lose their minds because it's like, oh, it's only 4 days of rest. It's like 4 days is huge for if it was within NBA context, right? But that's not the case. And I think that is an ideal way of going about it. I think there should be 2 games a week max. 4 games is insane. I'm in a fantasy league with my friends, and you get to kind of with this particular fantasy league, you get to it's for the Sleeper app. You get to choose, you get the chance to sort of lock in a particular performance by one of your players for a specific game. So say if they didn't perform super well earlier in the week, you have the chance to lock in and sort of essentially take a risk on if they might perform better that week, right? And looking at the amount of games that some teams have to go, where it's 4 games, you have 4 chances, which is good. There's more of a chance for you to get, a better fantasy score. But it's just kind of insane looking at that, right? I think that you look at that, you look at the schedule, and it is no wonder that you have players in and out of lineups. I am sick of hearing, and I don't think, maybe I just don't see it as much, or I'm not, I don't know, but I think the concept, especially I think with players like, say, Embiid, someone who has historically been injury prone and injured, I hate the argument that this person is like lazy and this person is not, they're soft and they can't get on the court. That's absolute nonsense because of the schedule, because of the rigor that they have to go through. I think that argument is BS. I think it's just straight up BS. You just put yourself, listen, I understand. I understand they're multimillionaires. They make more money in a game than anybody makes in maybe their entire lives, right? Which is ridiculous. It's absolute, like, you know what I mean? It's crazy, and it's messed up. But if you look at it from a more human perspective, you can understand why there is so much of an injury issue, right? And I was listening, I think this was maybe a couple of weeks ago. Actually, when I was in Japan, I was able to catch a little bit of this, but I was listening to the No Dunks podcast. They had on a sports physician, and the thing that he kept sort of pointing out and he kept sort of honing in on was the fact that student athletes begin their regimen, kind of accelerating their specialty in something like basketball or a single sport so earlier on in their career that their body breaks down so much more quicker because of the amount of games that they have to play. Sometimes they're playing, I think he said something along the lines of 3 games in a weekend, especially for adolescents who don't have fully developed bodies. That can't be good, right? And so when you have that earlier on of just kind of essentially running them into the ground, there is just this higher potential of players getting injured in their professional careers, right? Whether it's through kind of the, having early exposure in the AAU circuits, or, just kind of just continuing to just sort of bear themselves down at the high school level. I just think that it based on what he kind of laid out, it sounds incredibly damaging for just young athletes, right? And it doesn't bear good news later on in their careers, because those lingering issues from earlier on when they were still kids, those can catch up to you, and that could absolutely jeopardize the rest of your career. So that's something to kind of keep an eye on as things move forward. The fact that at the youth sports level, there just is such a hyper exposure, especially for those who are incredibly competitive and who desire to go into, the professional sports world. The fact that they get, put into that and put in that kind of, put under that pressure so earlier on in their lives is not necessarily a good thing, right? Obviously, there's things you can point out and say that, oh, this player was able to, we have more skilled athletes and players than ever before as a result of, the level of skills and talent that goes on in the youth leagues. But the contrast to that is that they are put under so much more regimen and rigor that it just is so much more damaging to their bodies, and that can have a lot of consequences later down the line. So it was interesting hearing that perspective. That was something that I had heard previously, but to have that kind of laid out was insightful. So it's not just, I'm a lot more hammering the schedule because that's what I'm familiar with. I don't really know. I mean, I played, I did sports for basically all 4 years of my high school, sports career, if you want to look at it that way or phrase it that way. And even myself, I still have lingering issues from doing things like track and cross country for essentially 4 straight years. That has been kind of damaging in a way. As much as I enjoyed doing it, I still have certain things like shin splints. I developed flat feet, and I can't run the same distance as I used to. I can't really do distance running anymore. I haven't had the opportunity. This is probably something where I probably should see like a podiatrist, foot doctor, and really kind of work through that. But I also haven't really desired to kind of get back into distance running as well. So that's, but that is probably something that I should, look into as I get older. But there have been lingering effects from when I was younger, when I kind of put myself through running almost every single day for 4 years, that there is some negative effects of that, where running, especially like on hard pavement, on hard surfaces, has not been good for my body, right? Which sucks. Like, it kind of sucks because that maybe has taken away some of my ability to do the things that I was able to do when younger. I just can't do those types of distances anymore at this point, right? Unless I figure things out. But obviously that's a little different because I didn't do it as intensively as some of these other kids who just go through the ringer with how much they put on their bodies. So even myself, who I didn't, I did a lot, but it wasn't to the extent of, oh, I'm doing this in order to secure, a scholarship to get into college as an athlete. I was under no illusions that I was going to be that good, right? But I still did it. Like, I still did a lot. And I think that it's I don't know. I think there needs to be some expectations placed, and obviously some things need to change at that level. I think sports science should be a lot more well integrated into youth sports so that they can have a better understanding of the risks, right? Of the risks of injury and long-term injury and prolonged effects of those things, because that can have a detrimental effect on your body later down the line. If you don't, and especially if you're younger, you just don't know these things. You don't have as much control. Your parents are kind of the ones that have you don't have like a lot of agency when you're a kid, right? Obviously you can just quit playing a sport, but if you're someone, maybe you're under pressure and under scrutiny from parental figures, that's a whole nother conversation. But I just think that, I don't know, there needs to be some more agency for kids, and there needs to be a lot more education about that type of thing, about sports, especially if someone is really wanting to get into the professional world. So that's just something that I've been kind of thinking about, plus sort of hearing and that kind of thing. So yeah, hopefully that is something that improves. Hopefully the level of sports science and sports medicine comes down. Like, obviously it's the trickle down effect. I know that's nonsense, but hopefully that somehow gets its way to I don't know, to actual, like, youth athletes and that kind of thing. So yeah, NBA Cup, injuries, that sort of thing. Warriors are not playing. I think they're playing tomorrow. I need to double check. But there's a little bit of a break for them, which I think is good. They definitely need a break. They need to regroup. There's a lot of drama going on. There's some stuff about Joe Lacob responding to a fan email. I don't really know what else to really add to that. It's just kind of like, all right, whatever. At this point, the speculation only goes so far. There just needs to be more tangible results on and off the court. Trades need to happen. Moves need to be made. That's really kind of what it comes down to. And all this just smoke. It doesn't matter. Like, until we see results, it really doesn't. I can read into the news, I can read into rumors and stuff like that. Until we see something actually happen, I'm just not gonna be super invested in that kind of thing. Like, I'll talk about, maybe I'll talk about those things, but it just is not. I don't know. I think I'm just gonna be patient, give it a month, and see how things go. Because right now it's pretty frustrating with this current team and current iteration of the team. So I think you just kind of have to wait it out. Okay. Enough NBA talk. So, life update. I'll be moving to New York in February for a new job. It's crazy to say that out loud. I've talked about this with, some friends and stuff, but it is kind of wild to say that out loud. It's been something that I've been thinking about in terms of just my career, just life goals and that kind of thing. It has been something that's been on my mind for quite some time in terms of living in a city like New York. It just never, there was never anything that really materialized. There were other times when I could have maybe taken the leap, but just the chance never came about. And right now I think is kind of the opportune time for me to do something like that. I'm not old by any means, but I just don't know when it could have been a better time for myself to do this. So I'm like, why not? Why not just take kind of the chance and see how that goes? This will be kind of officially kind of, officially the first time moving out. I've lived in other places before, but in terms of moving out from essentially my parents' place, this will be the first time. I've been here kind of where I am my entire life, and I've had moments where I could have done something. I think things like COVID definitely got in the way of me potentially making a move, and just in terms of like finances and that kind of thing, it didn't really make a lot of sense to do that. Now that I am a little bit more secure in that sense, I feel that I can take a bit more. It's not really a risk necessarily, but I feel I can take a bit of more of a leap doing something like this right now. And who knows, maybe it's not going to be it's not going to be a forever thing that I know of, right? I don't know how long I'm going to intend to be out there, but if I have the opportunity to do it, I just thought kind of like, why not? You know, I I have no, I'm trying not to have expectations of what it's gonna look like, because everyone's kind of experiences of living there are vastly different. I don't have, I don't have this sort of dream like vision of what my life is going to look like over there. I'm trying to temper expectations, but also sort of ground myself. You know what I mean? But I'm really excited. I think that this will be sort of, this is kind of a big sort of, I don't know, this feels like a pretty big moment in my life. And I, it's so wild that it's kind of finally come to this point where I'll be out there, because that's been something that I have been considering, not just since I started working necessarily, but also since I was kind of younger, in high school, even college. There's a little, not as much in college, but high school was just kind of like, oh, I want to live in these sort of bigger cities. I was thinking mostly like San Francisco, because that was a bit more tangible, being in California. But now that it's sort of, oh, it's actually happening, it's kind of surreal. It is. It's very surreal. It's going to be surreal kind of really being out there. You know what I mean? But I'm excited. I'm nervous and excited, but mostly excited. I think there's going to be a lot of things that I'll be able to do over there. There are things that I want to do outside of work. Just try kind of new things. Honestly, I kind of want to go with the approach in a similar way to how I did when I was maybe a freshman in college, where I was just trying out a bunch of new stuff. I really want to go in with that mentality. And I have done that through moments over the last few years or so, where I was trying some different things here and there, maybe once in a while. But I feel that being in that type of space is going to allow way more opportunity to explore and, I don't know, just try out stuff. So it's kind of that's something that I really want to try to go out with, that sort of mentality of seeking out some different things and being around different types of people. And that's, yeah, I mean, I don't know what other word to use than exciting. It's going to be It's going to be fun. I'm sure there's going to be moments where it's tough to just being in a new environment, being away from the people that I know. That's going to be an adjustment for sure. I'm fully kind of aware of that. I know there's going to be times where I struggle with stuff, and I struggle, figuring out kind of my place there. But I feel that where I am now in my life and the type of person that I am and who I've sort of become, I feel that I'm pretty well equipped to be able to kind of handle that and to be able to sort of transition to that. So I, you know, no time like the present. I think I think it was worthwhile for myself to be patient with, with myself and the timing and stuff. But it's I just think that this was it's a pretty quick turnaround for sure. I really only have a couple of months to figure everything out. Maybe not everything, but figure a good amount of things out. But I don't know. I think I couldn't really afford to wait around any longer just for myself. And yeah, I just thought, why not? Why not take the chance? It's really not as risky as I sort of make it sound. I feel that I can pivot to other things if this doesn't necessarily work out, but I feel pretty confident that I'll find a way to make it work regardless. And even if I'm not there permanently, at least I'll get a chance to kind of be there for, in a fairly extended amount of time. I don't know how long necessarily, but I'll be there for a good chunk of time, at least a year plus. And so, yeah, why not? That's kind of where I was at when making that decision. So, it's going to also change sort of the way in which just being out there and doing different things, that's also going to give me, I don't know, that's going to change some of the things that I talk about on here as well, right? Because I'm probably not going to have as much time to do my usual things of watching basketball and playing video games and that kind of thing. I'm going to have to forego some of that, which I'm okay with, honestly. Because those things are always going to be there, right? And I love, I love my hobbies. I love my current hobbies of gaming and that kind of thing. But I can also afford to be patient with those as well, because those are going to be there. I can play games like 2 years later down the line if I need to. And I think it's worthwhile to set aside some time to do other things and to stretch out some other creative muscles that I maybe haven't tapped into for a long time. So that's kind of the thing that, along with the opportunity to, work a new job and kind of be in that space, also do things outside of that as well, and maybe kind of, do some things that I haven't done in quite some time, and or just try completely new things as well. So yeah, that's going to kind of, obviously that's going to change with, the things that I talk about on here. I have considered what, maybe vlogging or something like that, which is very stereotypical of anyone moving to New York. Or I'll just use this current format as a way of talking about and sort of expressing my experiences. So, who knows? Maybe I will film something. That might be fun. Who knows? Anyways, just wanted to kind of talk about that a little bit. I thought it would be fun to kind of share that, because that will affect, obviously, the things that I do end up talking about in the near future. So just wanted to kind of put that out there. Anyways, that's going to do it for today's episode. I will probably be back later this weekend or early next week, depending on timing and everything like that. So by then, we'll see if I've had the time to catch up on some more games, if the Warriors are doing any better, if I have delved into any new games, because I'm really not playing too much right now. I did start playing last night a little bit of the Risk of Rain 2 DLC, which has been pretty fun. I only played it like an hour or so, but new maps, some new characters, some new items and stuff like that. I've been playing that game for quite a while now, and I finally delved into the DLC, which I thought was kind of about time, right? So maybe I'll talk about that. I don't know how much there is to really talk about that on my end, but in terms of new games, I'm not exactly sure. If because I was thinking, am I gonna get Kirby Air Riders? And I think I might kind of hold off on that. I played the what was it, the global test, and it was really fun. I mean, it was Kirby Air Riders, right? It was great. I just don't know how much time I would dedicate to that, just considering everything going on. And it is a pretty expensive game too, so that is something to take into consideration. Could I get like a cheaper game that I could spend more time with? You know what I mean? So I who knows? I think I might hold off on playing that for a little while, maybe until like next year or something. I don't know. And then maybe I'll pick up something else, or I'll just be playing Risk of Rain 2 or other, maybe some other stuff, maybe just some Fortnite, Rocket League here and there. So yeah, I guess we'll see. Anyways, that's going to do it for now. Thanks for listening. As always, this has been Save the Semantics, signing off.